Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Rut Podcast. What's happening, my woods people? We're here in Sulphur Springs again. KC is chilling in the pink chair again, flexing his muscles, doing disco dances, doing the Carlton. What's happening, dude?
It's time to make a scrape.
No.
It's time to rub a tree.
No. Scrapes are over. Scrapes are over. Rubbing trees, maybe.
Nah, dude.
No.
You know that big buck comes in and ruts up and they make like fresh scrapes.
I know, but I've already made
all
scrapes.
season.
I've already made my scrapes.
It's time to check them in.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it today. Like, it's got that feel outside that's, you know, there's been days that have been this temperature, but it's just crisper or something. You know, there's something to it.
Christopher?
Yeah. Columbus.
It is a crisp day out there. I am an idiot. I'm an idiot. I wanted to go real bad this morning, and so I kind of mentioned this to you. It is a great day. We had a front come in basically this morning, and I knew it was going to. I knew it was going to be cold rest of the day. It's supposed to come raining, which is even more reason to be in a tree this morning. The most reason is because it's one of the first east-northeast winds that we've had. Therefore, perfect wind for hunting teenager. And so I got everything ready last night, and I thought, man, I'm going to go. And then I just couldn't do it. I have been exhausted. I've been running ragged since September, and I've been running behind on editing all kinds of wedding films. I got church videos that I've been doing. I got all the element stuff, and I'm just trying to catch up. And I decided that the best thing for me to do would be not to get up at 3:15, but to sleep until 6 and work on video editing until basically we did this podcast today. And so I still think it's a great move. I just also would really love to have a tag wrapped around teenager right now. And I think that this would be a great day to do it. And so I'm just a little bit upset with myself because I feel like if I hadn't have gone on some of the hotter days that we went on this year and instead got some work done, that maybe I would have gone this morning.
You never know. But the good news is it's not the last day of season.
It's true, but it's a great day of the season.
It's a great day
Halloween.
of the season. It is, for sure. A lot of big deer die this day, seems like. You know, everybody talks about the rut dates, which, coincidentally, we're going to talk to somebody today about rut stuff.
Yep, we are. We've got AJ Gall of Legendary Whitetails. He's a hunting content manager there. Seems like I don't know AJ that well at this point, but I'm sure we will afterwards. And he seems like a very knowledgeable guy. He writes a lot of articles. You've read some of his articles. He kind of writes a lot of stuff that we talk about where, you know, it's not always about hunting tactics or whatever, but it's like relates to how, you know, your other parts of your lifestyle that go on that are affected by your hunting lifestyle. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. He writes a lot of conceptual stuff.
Yeah.
But the dude's a big buck killer. You know, lives in southern Wisconsin and which is pretty much infamous for giant deer. Mm-hmm. Worked in Iowa with some of our friends down there, and so he knows his way around a bow and arrow. I guarantee you that.
Yep. He's got some pictures of some big old brutes on there. So we are going to talk about the rut with him. Try to just unwrap that.
Before I said that, I wanted to touch on that a little bit about how, November 7th, a lot of people think it's their favorite day. But it seems like to me just the pulse is that, man, Halloween is a really good day. And it's a whole week before, like, the consensus of what the rut is happens. Mm-hmm. You know? And I don't know if it's just because big bucks get on their feet, or if it's a common, time period for there to be a cold front that weekend or what, but
I feel like one thing about it is if a deer gets killed on October 31st, okay, put it this way. Say you go looking on Instagram on October 31st, and there's like $15 on there that have been killed that day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're looking at the end of the night, Halloween, and there's $15 killed that day. And then the next night you go look and there's $15 killed on November 1st on your Instagram as well. Well, it's November. It's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's October. It's not really supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if there's like a little bit of like in our minds, like it's October, it's still early.
Mm-hmm.
But then November 1st is one day later, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, it's November. It's the right, you know.
It probably
so-
has something to do with that. And it probably has to do with the fact that, like, for social media purposes or just media, like on TV or whatever, like, killing a Halloween buck is kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, it's a cool thing to
Spooky.
say. Like, yeah, like,
So spooky.
I'm going to go out there tonight and I'm going to shoot him and then we're going to go trick or treat afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, people think that's neat to do that. And it is. You know, it's cool to get it done this early. But
Dude, you need a redneck hunting show.
I do, man.
You'd
Trucks,
be-
bucks, and ducks.
You'd be a great host. You can talk so fast and so well. I can't do that.
I don't know about the
stuff.
well part, man. I can talk pretty fast. All right, so on my way over here today, I drove through a creek bottom because I like creek bottoms and they're pretty and there's deer there a lot.
Yeah.
And I did not see any deer on the way, or at least that bottom, but I did see something. So describe this when you see it.
It's a long or tall, whichever way you're looking at it, oak tree leaf with a yellow and brown tip, and it's got kind of rounded lobes.
Okay, very good.
Bottom's green.
Any guess as to what it is yet? Or you want to see something else?
I'll just guess. I don't know. No, I can't guess.
Okay. Same tree.
Okay. Similar leaf, but bigger. Still rounded lobes, but kind of not very symmetrical.
Any guesses?
Just some kind of a red oak.
Usually white oaks are going to have the lobed as opposed to pointy.
I mean, that's what I thought too,
Yeah.
but the white oaks I've seen don't really look
They don't look like that.
like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it looks like a combination. Now, this is going to tell you what it is.
Bur oak.
Bur oak. Found a bur oak, and I got an acorn from it, which, coincidentally, bur oaks are not great for whitetail, even though they're a giant acorn because they're so hard to crack. I think they just can't eat them, but hogs love them, and they're just a neat little acorn. So I just thought I'd quiz you a little bit. It's kind of fun.
So is a bur oak a red or a white oak?
It's a white.
It is.
Type of white, yeah. And they make some improved varieties, which improved means human hybridized. They make some improved varieties of bur oaks. I think they cross them with, I can't even remember, but they cross them with another member of the white oak family. And it makes the, I don't know what you call that, the outside of the acorn a lot softer and a lot more palatable for deer so they can crack them. And those, the deer tear up because they're the size of a golf ball. Yeah, so pretty cool though. I just like oak trees, all facets. They're just pretty.
Journey had a bur oak acorn at the soccer game last night.
Where'd she get it?
I think Papa gave it to her.
Oh, Papa brought it over.
Yeah.
I got you. That's not a very common tree for around here. I mean, they're down on the bottom some, but like it's not like a post oak where you go outside and spit and you hit one.
Right. Yep. Well, got anything else new?
That's it, man. Just little oak trees.
All right. So yeah, we still are. We're still struggling to put an antlered deer on the board right now, but we are heading to Kansas pretty soon here.
Oh, I'm so excited.
When you listen to this podcast, we will be just days away from our trip up there to try to make something happen. So, it's I'm usually Mr. December when it comes to killing bucks, but I don't know. We've got one. My dad's been up there twice, and we've got a trail camera picture of a deer that we are about 100% sure is at least 9 years old. And he's a really nice 10 point with a big 4-inch kicker off his G2. And we've been trying to get him for the last couple of years. And he always disappears in that like early to mid-November. So if I am going to get a chance at this 9-year-old buck, it's going to be on this trip probably. Ooh. So we're going to see what we can pull off there. May do a little scouting on some public and stuff. You never know. But I guess if there's nothing else, man, we'll go ahead and get AJ on the phone.
Let's give him a holler.
Let's do it. All right, on the phone right now we have AJ Gall of Legendary Whitetails. He is the hunting content manager. He's an avid rider and an avid whitetail hunter. What's going on, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Pretty
Life's
good.
Pretty good up here.
Yeah, is it cooling off there?
Man, we haven't had a cold front like this leading or going into the rut in I don't know when. It's been at least 3 years, so it's nice to have temperatures in the low 30s and 20s when you wake up. And
Yeah.
and Facebook's been blowing up, so I'm assuming it's working out pretty well for a lot of guys.
That's the truth, man. We just got a good front this morning, so unfortunately I wasn't able. I don't know if I'm in the same boat as you, but I had a lot of computer work this morning that I didn't kept me out of the woods.
Yeah. This year's a little different for me. Just got back about 10 days ago from a 10-day Wyoming trip hunting mule deer, so
Cool.
kind of screwed up my typical rut hunting schedule for whitetails here. But I think starting tomorrow, I'm lucky enough that I can shift my work hours, and hopefully I'll be able to get out at least every afternoon now through the rest of November. So.
Cool. Was that a draw hunt that you did out there, I guess?
For us, it ended up being we applied 2 years ago, and it was supposed to be 95% draw rates, and I guess we drew the 5% undraw. So,
Yeah.
So we ended up doing preference point 2 years ago, and then drawing this past year. So a group of 6 of us went out and we decked out this utility trailer here for work, and we're able to take that out. It's pretty much like the ultimate deer hunting rig on wheels. So it was a good time. 6 buddies went, and we all ended up tagging out, some bigger than others, but for the first time out there, we had a blast.
Yeah, man, that hunt looked like a lot of fun, and I was checking out that trailer online, and it looks sweet. Did you do most of the work on that?
It's been a fun project. I've always enjoyed working in the trade, so I kind of pitched it when me and a couple of buddies, when we were planning this Wyoming trip, we're like, oh man, it'd be kind of nice to have a trailer to go out there in. And I'm like, maybe I can pull this one through work. Yeah,
that's cool. So I've had a very similar idea, and like I got real fired up about this about a month ago, and then kind of lost it when season started. But, I do carpentry for a living, so that's kind of like right up my alley, like something. It'd be cool to be able to like combine what I do for a living and actually do something I care about, as opposed to beating on studs on a house all day or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, we had just my wife and I had just finished up kind of flipping one of our own houses, and it was like, oh man, and that was all summer, and then then this trailer came along and took a little bit longer to get approved. So then we were kind of punching the clock late nights leading up to the trip to get it done. But so it was pretty cool to watch it all come together.
Is that designed from like an RV perspective or as a hunter? Like I didn't really get to see the practical uses of it too much.
Right.
Do you have I saw like the scent crusher closet in there and stuff.
Yeah. So basically, it's mostly designed around the hunter, but to kind of serve as like the camp hub, I guess, so to speak. So if you got a couple guys, you'll be able to sleep in it. We've got a set of disco beds, or they're like a camo bunk system where they're bunkable cots.
Okay.
So we'll be taking it to deer camp this year. So a buddy of me will be staying in that. But kind of all the features you'll see. Eventually we'll be coming out. We're releasing a phase every week. So
cool.
It's pretty much complete now, but we haven't put out the full walkthrough video. So we've got butchering tables, game hoists.
That's awesome.
It was pretty slick. It definitely worked well for our first trip.
That's cool. So that's on Legendary Whitetails. Like y'all be doing those updates weekly?
Yep. It's called the Legendary Rut Trailer, and RUT stands for Recreational Utility Trailer.
Awesome. That's cool. That's awesome, dude. Well, I'm excited to see how those go throughout the year, and I guess that y'all got to put it to darn good use out there in Wyoming. You said, did all 6 of y'all tag out?
Yeah, we all did. Some of them I'll say, 2 of them were really nice bucks that they're getting shoulder mounted. I think it was 5x5s, I think. and then a couple 2-year-olds, big forks, 3x2, and then there's a couple last day bucks in there, a spiker, a 3-pointer.
Yeah. Hey, it's
But,
all good, man.
Yeah, it's a blast. Different kind of hunting style from being in the tree stand all the time. So
Oh, yeah.
it was fun.
Cool, man. What's the gas mileage like with that thing behind the truck?
Yeah, that was my biggest concern. Of course, my buddy that has the diesel, he's like, I'm not pulling that thing. I've got another trailer to pull. So we had a trailer with 2 freezers on and the ATVs that he pulled. And then I had to pull this big rig with my 2004 Chevy Avalanche.
All right.
So yeah, it was. I think I averaged right around 8.5, 9 miles a gallon.
Hey, it's not bad.
Not too bad. Yeah.
No. We ran into some guys from Michigan that had actually been camping on this in the same area. They're like, "Yeah, we saw your trailer. What's your gas mileage?" And this was at a gas station somewhere in South Dakota on the way back home. And he's like, "Man, I was getting 6 miles to the gallon." And he was pulling some big camper. I'm like, "Ooh, that stinks."
Yeah. So did you, when you designed it, did you have any, did you worry any about the weight and try to cut where you could, or were you just like, we're going to stack everything in here that we need, basically?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a concern. I didn't want to, obviously it'd be nicer to have a bigger area to sleep in or store stuff, but I think it's a 14x7. So that was kind of the maximum we were looking to go, to keep it reasonable to be able to pull it with a standard truck that most of us are running around with.
Yeah.
And then we also wanted, dual axles in case, we blew a tire.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nice to have the dual axle and for weight capacity. And really there's not a ton in the trailer unless we end up putting an ATV in it or something. But, the front cabinets are kind of built out. So, and then a freezer, and then the rest of it's pretty empty. It just holds a lot of features that help the hunter. So
cool. So, after your trip, would you say, I know it's early, would you say that cost extra gas and I guess kind of probably just the stress of hauling something else is worth having the having the living quarters there to kind of make life easier at camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Mm-hmm. Of course, when it's on the company's bill, it's always worth it. Yeah. I mean, I look at it. We went with a brand new trailer, but I'm looking at the cost. You could really keep a project like this pretty down. I mean, the cost of the trailer and then the exterior, wraps and graphic that we included for the marketing purposes was largely probably 85% of the cost. Mm-hmm. So if you pick up a used, 10, 12 foot trailer, if you don't care about head height, whatever, it'll function the same. It's just, that's kind of the route we went. So you could definitely keep costs down on a project like this in terms of building materials and what you include on it.
Cool.
So,
well, it's exciting. We'll be following it for sure. I know you said it's that trip kind of cut into your whitetail stuff a little bit, but have you been out some this I guess in the early season so far?
Yeah. So before that, I was, before we left October 13th, it was, I don't know, I probably hunted maybe 3 times. Not a ton, just getting ready with the trip, working on the trailer every night. Mm-hmm. And then since then, of course, I get back, I'm like, I'm looking at the weather on the way back from Wyoming. I'm like, man, there's a massive cold front coming in. And I'm talking with the buddies. I'm like, how do you think we're going to get our wives to let us go right back hunting after being gone for 10 days?
Yeah.
It's like, luckily, we're having dinner at my parents' house, and my stepdad does the same thing. He's like, so you're going to be in the stand Tuesday? My wife is like, what is so good about this Tuesday? And I was like, I told you, it's just these cold fronts. You get them once. The late October cold fronts only come around so often.
Yeah.
I was able to sneak out for a couple quick afternoon hunts and had, saw some pretty good action. A lot of does, a lot of smaller bucks bumping does, but it should heat up here in the next week for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you were, according to an article that I read, you were intending to hunt drainages and sloughs in like cornfields early this season.
Yeah.
Did you get to do that, and how's that gone for you?
That's coming up, actually. The corn is still standing here. We had some rain recently too. The beans are all cut, corn standing, and I'm really looking forward to getting in to that slough. And I think I'm going to switch up my plan a little bit. There's actually, I don't know, that article has some pictures, but there's like a little island of trees that's just down from where I was originally planning on sitting. I think I'm going to sit in there, and I really don't, there's some wind directions that are better than the others, but with it being surrounded by 80 acres of corn and a bunch of good bedding off to the east yet as well, there's not an ideal wind because it could come from anywhere, but hopefully, I mean, a north would probably serve me the best. So I'm waiting to go do a hanging hunt in there. I've got a tree picked out, and I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting sitting a rut when it's just completely covered by corn like that. I think hopefully that island will serve as kind of a hub, and hopefully there's some rubs and stuff in there.
Is it a pretty small tree?
Actually, this one's a pretty decent tree. I've had a tree stand in it in the past during late season hunts when a lot of times when they cut this corn, that particular farmer doesn't plow any of his stuff, so it's usually a pretty good late season stand. So
cool. So as those fields are kind of being harvested, is that going to change your tactics like until the late season, I guess?
Yeah. That's one thing. The property I hunt, so I'm in southeast Wisconsin here. Primarily, a lot of the country around here is a lot of ag. There's some pockets of timber and tree lines. So I'm lucky. There's a fair amount of cover on the property I hunt, but a large majority of it is ag. So I would say it's probably a 30-60 or 30-70 split. Timber / cover to ag. So once those fields start getting harvested, it changes pretty dramatically, especially one side, they'll pretty much pick their corn and plow it within, a 3-day span, depending on the weather. So that really changes it. If it's, I love sitting over fresh pick corn. I'll take a decoy out there, and then first day after it's picked, it's it's usually loaded with deer, so it's just a matter of if the mature buck comes out there. And it's always right in the beginning of November, usually corn harvest, so it always pairs up pretty well with the rut.
Yeah. So down here we don't really have much of at least deer food style ag, so this kind of stuff's kind of new to me, and I would think just as hunting experience that it would be scary for me knowing that I'm going into the rut and the crops aren't harvested yet. That, because what if they're in there with a harvester the day you're trying to hunt the cold front or whatever? Does that bug you, or do you have like backup stands for that situation?
It does. And funny, 2 years ago I shot, I guess it's my biggest buck. It scored the exact same as one I had shot in Iowa, 152. And we shot him. We did a hanging hunt on this little peninsula that went into a cornfield, and they were harvesting that cornfield as we hung the set.
Oh, wow.
And I think at first I was like, dang it, there's not going to be much moving around here with the harvester and the grain bins running around. But that was, I think it was right around midday, and I was like, well, they'll be gone. It's a pretty small field. They'll be gone and out of here. And it actually, I think, ended up helping us because it pushed those deer that were bedded in that peninsula in deeper, and we were able to set up on the outside, and then caught a big cruising buck later that night. And it was 75 degrees,
Wow.
It was it was crazy warm that year, and it was pretty frustrating. He was the only deer I saw that night, but
hey, that's all that matters right there.
5 minutes left the shooting line.
Yeah, that's cool. So like the farmer kind of did a bump and up for you, and you didn't have to do all the work for it. That's pretty interesting, man. So do you think that mature buck was in the corn bedded, or do you think that he was like just in the peninsula you were hunting and just kind of worked his way down?
I don't think he was in the corn, judging by where he came from. But I think what may have happened is there's a lot of doe groups that'll bed in that peninsula. So he was definitely, it was a south wind that day, and he was cruising the downwind edge of the timber where, it's probably about 20 yards, and then it gets a little thicker and swampier inside the timber, and he was cruising that downwind side. So I'm guessing he was, scent checking that, and then I hit him with a couple grunts, and then it was a thick enough peninsula that when he was standing in an open alfalfa field at the time, and usually grunts kind of hard when he doesn't see anything to come to, but luckily we were just inside the timber enough to draw him in. But that's my guess as to what he was doing. But every year this little peninsula it's just tore up with rubs and stuff, and there's not really a good way to hunt it right now. With the corn standing, because it's corn again this year, so I'm kind of waiting to get in there. But with it standing, there's not, again, it's one of those places that there's not really an ideal wind, because the way it sets up, there's potential for deer to come from any direction. I guess a northeast would be ideal, but that's once in a blue moon.
Yeah, it's kind of rare. Yeah. So you said that, like, as soon as they cut it, you love to go in with a decoy, right? And I've had pretty mixed results with decoys, and I think it's because for the longest I was just throwing a doe decoy out there hoping that it would attract something. Do you have like a tactic or opinion on doe versus buck, or how you set the decoy up or anything?
I'll always use a buck. I haven't used a doe much. I use I don't know, maybe one or two times I think I've used a doe, the Montana doe pop-up decoy, where I went and did a quick hanging hunt, or not even a hanging hunt, went in with a climber, needed to keep things light, and threw out a Montana just because I was downhill. If anything happened to come or search above me, then they would see that decoy. But didn't really have any spectacular results, but didn't see many deer either for them to react. So, but yeah, usually I'll do a buck decoy. Sometimes, a lot of times I'll take off half its rack, kind of make it that bully looking inferior buck. And then, I don't know, I guess most of the time I'm targeting mature bucks. So I'd prefer not to draw attention to any does. And most of the time does won't, get too close and come and sniff it. Now, if you get those forkers and spikes, they can kind of mess it up sometimes, because they're pretty curious and stupid. They'll mess around with the damn decoy forever. Do
you think that hurts you, like if a mature buck comes in while that's going on, or do you think it excites them?
I don't mind it if they're in the area. I think it excites them, but I haven't had enough experiences with it to comment one way or the other. I think it's just, I like having something out in these big open fields because it feels like it gives me a chance from the get-go. If I think a lot of guys get stuck hunting the edges of these fields because every night they're seeing maybe 5, 10, 20 deer, whatever it is, come out and feed in these fields, and they think they're in the game. But I don't know, to me, hunting big fields just drives me insane. And if I am constantly trying to, every night you could be watching where they come out, and some scenarios are different. Obviously, sometimes they're going to come out of the same spot every time. In that case, well, then these big fields can be slam dunks. But if it's just a big chunk of timber and they just kind of sporadically come out wherever, it can drive you insane, because there you are stuck watching these deer 200 yards away all night. And you never get a shot. It feels like a great sit, but at the end of the day and at the end of the week, you never flung an arrow. So, I like to at least try to increase my odds and give them something to look at.
Is that kind of the idea behind going in there right after the harvest? Is that suddenly the deer can see a long ways, and maybe their attention is drawn to looking around? You know how, like, when you go to a new area to hunt, you always like to go somewhere where you can see or glass or whatever. Right. Is that kind of why you like to hunt right after the harvest?
Yeah, I think it's between that, and there's just like this weird appeal that they love to be in those fields right after harvest. I think it's because, the combine's knocking a ton of grain on the ground. They were probably feeding in those fields when they were standing also. Maybe you just couldn't see them. and now you can see them, they can see each other, so they interact differently that way. If you got does, usually it's just kind of like the central hub as soon as a field has been harvested. So you've got a pretty good chance that a hot doe is going to be out there somewhere. And then hopefully, it draws in a mature buck, or he'll come and cruise at least.
Mm-hmm. So what's the I guess the science behind the single horn as opposed to, leaving it with both up there? Like I understand, like, I guess it looks smaller up there, but in my mind too, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the guy who knows how to whoop butt because he's been in a lot of fights, So, like,
I hear you.
I don't, what do you think? Have you tested with it and seen better results?
I guess you probably can't classify it as science because I don't think I've ever seen any facts behind it. But I don't know. To me, I don't know. It's probably just a personal preference. I don't know. It probably works just as good with two antlers. I don't know. I just think it makes it look like a smaller buck because some of these decoys, I mean, gosh, I look at their bodies. I'm like, that is a big bodied deer. I'm like, that thing's gonna scare them away.
Yeah. I'm gonna try it with backwards horns one time. I think see if that works. Be like an elk. So we kind of talked about decoying, but what about calling? Are you doing much calling during the rut or pre-rut? And run us through that scenario. What you would do?
Yeah, sure. And I think I'll double back on the decoy thing here. I think that's another reason I like to use a decoy in open areas because it gives your call a visual. Does that make sense? If you're over a giant cornfield and all of a sudden you're grunting and this deer can look from 200 yards away, look up and doesn't see anything. Well, I don't know, unless you got a big patch of thick stuff behind you, there's a pretty good chance he's going to want to see something before he commits to whatever's making that noise.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another one. I think it saves your calling using a decoy. It's not always the easiest, of course, to take in a decoy, which is kind of the annoying part. Especially some of those big or whatever, those boss bucks, and they're so noisy. It's crazy, but it's nice when you hunt with a partner or something, if you're filming and then you can make him carry it in and it's just a whole lot easier because whenever anything tinks off that loud plastic, it jerks you.
That's kind of, we hunt together a lot. We've been hunting public a lot, and
awesome.
You do, when you start looking at 2 cameras, 2 tree arms, 2 stands, sticks, all this stuff, like you pretty much are going to have almost all of that by yourself. So you might as well take another guy in to carry some stuff,
Right.
It definitely works out.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it felt so nice to come back from when I used to be with Midwest Whitetail. That's where I kind of got my start as an intern. And to do that first time without a camera was like freedom.
Yeah.
What? I'm just carrying in a bow? Now it's back to toting film gear.
Yeah, that's it.
It was short lived.
Yeah, we did 2 days ago. We did a hunt, and I was scouting some public land, and KC met me out there kind of late, and we were like, well, it's 4:30. We need to we've got a spot that's like pretty close to the road, and an area that we've seen some good camera detail on recently. So we're like, let's just go in there and do a quick, hang and sit there until dark. We'll get a couple hours in the stand maybe. And so we went in and we got everything set up, and it's like one of those deals where you're just like hard at it, and then all of a sudden you get everything done and you kind of take this deep sigh, and then Casey goes, man, this camera stuff is no joke. I was like, it is. It's a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, it adds about a solid 45 minutes to set up, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to take it all down. It's like,
just a couple hours later.
Sometimes it goes down faster than others, though. So I happened to not tie a good enough knot in Tyler's backpack.
Oh, boy.
Man. And
was the camera in it?
Yes, camera was in it.
And my shades.
And did your sunglasses break?
They popped both sides off.
But they're fine?
Yeah, they're good.
Okay. Well,
looks like you owe them a new pair of shades.
Yeah. Man. But the camera was in it, and luckily it only came out scratched and not
broken. We think
Cosmetic.
It's working now. So yeah.
How long ago was this?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Yeah. So
All right.
yeah, technology
Real
sometimes
recent.
breaks inside of backpacks, like when it sits there though. So we'll see. But I told him I'll buy the lens if we need a new lens. Don't worry. So
What kind of camera was it?
It's a Canon 6D. That one is. That was kind of
Okay.
our wide angle perspective, and the lens is a 24-70, which I like to use a wide angle for kind of a behind the hunter perspective, but
Sure.
but like when we're kind of trying to get a few things on the way in on an afternoon hunt or something like that, like I try to take that 24-70 so that I have the opportunity to be a little bit more dynamic with some of the shots. So anyway,
yeah. So you guys are toting around 2 cameras then?
yeah, we've been using that and like a long lens camera with it's a Sony that's A6300. It's got the ability to shoot slow mo and stuff like that. So
Sure.
and then we just actually bought what is it, AX 100
Yeah.
Sony as well. So it's a little more. That's kind of like if you have to be in the woods self filming, that's your camera to use.
That's your
for
little
sure.
go-to. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're using right now.
Nice.
I shoot wedding films, so I have a ton of camera equipment that I would like to use, but you can't always hang and hunt with some of the stuff that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
You'd be toting around 2 backpacks.
Oh yeah. Which I was actually thinking yesterday. I was like, man, I need a bigger backpack.
yeah.
Anyway, so back to this calling. You
Yeah.
kind of talked about how you're calling with a decoy. Do you ever call without a decoy, or is that just kind of like if last chance at a buck that's cruising through or something like that?
I would say I don't do a whole lot of blind calling depending on my situation. If it's pretty thick, then I'll get in there blind call. Rattling I'll do quite a fair amount of rattling blind, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. It kind of depends on what I feel like that day in the woods.
Yeah.
If I think, if it's really calm and there's some thick stuff where I might excite a buck, then yeah, sure, I'll hit the grunt tube or do some doe bleats. But a lot of times the grunting, that I get responses to is when I can see the deer and see how he's reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a grunt tube is just a crazy good tool. I've had a lot of good luck with a grunt tube. So
No rattling.
I like rattling. Yeah. I get a lot of small bucks in, it seems like, on rattling sequences. Now, maybe that's just because every time I hit the horns, I think there's definitely that aspect or luck factor that mature buck has to be within range or close by to get him excited and come in. But yeah, I'd say I love the grunt tube. I like cracking the horns together because it's nice and loud and gets your excitement up for the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah. Keeps you
If
from
anything.
freezing and having terrible negative thoughts.
right.
Until you smash your finger with a brow tine or something.
Yeah. Hate it.
The last deer I rattled in was actually in 2011, and I made a mistake on a buck that was quite a bit too young and small for what I was actually looking for. So I haven't rattled a whole lot in the last several years.
You guys rattle a lot in Texas.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. From the TV shows, I see a lot of ground rattling and stalking through the mesquite.
Yeah, we get
that's how it's like in your neck of the woods.
We get generalized in Texas quite a bit.
Yeah,
The
it's a big
state's
state.
about 5 states big, so
I
we
know.
actually live in oak trees and pine trees and different kind of prairie type stuff. So little less deer population here than what you would see on the TV shows and stuff like that.
So what region of the state is that? Like southeast,
Northeast is
okay.
that's where we live, and probably spend the majority of our time hunting in this area, the northeastern part of Texas. We've both spent a lot of time out in West Texas and some time in South Texas too. But we definitely, you gotta hunt where you live too. So
Right. Absolutely.
okay, so this is a selfish question right here, but I saw the hunt on Midwest Whitetail. There may be more than one, but I saw one where you killed a toad with those guys on public land. And if I don't draw a tag there next year, I'm in that like less than 5% that you were in in Wyoming. I'm like, I don't know how I wouldn't draw one, but I definitely showed myself that I could not draw it this year. So
How many years do you have?
Let's see, 4, I think.
Okay,
So,
we're in the same boat. Maybe we'll hunt together next year.
Hey,
right,
let's
dude.
do it, man. We'll do it.
Sure, the trailer will be down there.
Yeah, dude. Stay in
All
the
right.
butt trailer.
Dude, I'm gonna bum, man, big time. Okay, so I'm hoping to draw that tag there next year, somewhere in southern Iowa, and probably be hunting public unless something radically changes where I figure I have a relative or something there. But lay out your favorite setup for hunting in that area and killing a mature buck as we come into like this late October, early November time period. I mean, because I know a lot of guys are taking their rutcation, from what I hear at least, during that like basically 1st of November, first 2 weeks, and so I hunt Kansas. I have for a long time now, and I actually love hunting around Thanksgiving there too. So I don't know what that looks like there in southern Iowa, but maybe just kind of give me a brief rundown of your thoughts there.
Yeah, I love Iowa. I mean, honestly, the public land that we were hunting down there was better than 90% of the private land here around where I live in Wisconsin. Now, there's some great private land in Wisconsin, but it's just incredible. I think like 80% of our sits, we'd see a shooter over 140, and it was like we were just going in blind. And it's like we didn't have trail cameras or anything. It seemed like you could walk off the road, hang a stand, and you'd be in for a good sit. And that was back in 2012, and the year that they had a pretty harsh EHD year that year, especially the area where I ended up killing mine. I love the area. It's like I know when I first walked up on that area that I ended up shooting that buck, we walked in on this creek, crossed it, and then it's kind of like your little creek flat with, a tree every 20 yards with the grassy bottom, kind of what you picture on TV when you see some of these river bottom type hunts. And I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. And then I happened to have a big old ridge point that was private, but it necked down. It was so steep that it necked down the deer travel. Everything was going around the bottom side of that ridge and in between that and the creek. So it was a terrific pinch point. And then on top of that, we had bedding areas on both sides. Let's see here, it would have been to the north and the south, and it just worked out perfect. We had kind of written the spot off because of the EHD. And so wherever these creeks would run through, you would find every time we'd go in there, we'd find dead deer, and they'd be laying in these creeks. And it's like, well, we'd try to hunt our properties that were further away from creeks just to hope that EHD wasn't such a toll. And so we ended up giving it a flyer one night, and I saw a pretty good 8-pointer that I would have shot. It was probably 135-inch 8-pointer. And I was like, all right. And then that was end of October sometime, like around the 28th. And I was like, well, there's at least deer in here still. So then I don't think we probably didn't hunt it then again. I think I did one all day sit there around the 6th or something like that, and just saw one small buck. And then it was right around, I'm trying to even think now if it was the 14th or 15th. I know my whole family in Wisconsin was headed up north to deer camp because we've got our gun season starting that weekend. And I know I shot it on a Thursday afternoon about 3:30, just got in there and had a perfect west wind, and this thing was just cruising head down the whole way and didn't even have to. It was like a picture perfect hunt. The deer didn't stop at all to make you worried that he was going to turn the other way. He just came trotting in, veered off the right way, perfectly broadside, stopped him, 15-yard shot, and then he piled up on camera too. So
that's
that
cool.
was awesome.
There was no worries at all. And Yeah, I was just super pumped. You probably can't hear it in the video, but my cameraman was hyperventilating into the microphone of the camera. So it's like everybody thought it was me, and he's just like, "Oh, the raw audio is just terrific."
Yeah.
That's cool. Sounds like you're pretty excited too, because that was a really
Oh, my
aggressive
gosh.
grunt stop that you put on that deer.
Oh yeah, I made that thing stop.
Is that? But okay, so to kind of turn that a little bit tactical, is that something that you like when you have to grunt stop a deer? Do you usually give it a good one solid butt, or do you normally kind of progressively get louder? Because okay, let me give you a little backstory. Last year, I hunt in public here in Texas. Grunt stopped a buck at about 31
30,
yards,
yeah.
and dude, that thing went from just chilling to hair on fire when I grunt stopped, and it ended up jumping the string. Like he dropped 14 inches on me. So I'm pretty burned on the dang grunt stop. But so selfishly, I kind of want to ask you, since it's worked for you. You know, do you have any tactic behind it, or is it just what naturally comes out?
Yeah, I think this one might have came out a little louder because it was one. I knew he was close. You know, if I don't have to use a grunt stop, I prefer not to because, like what you just said, they'll jump the string. Lucky he was only 15 yards, so I wasn't too terribly worried about that. But the other part was he was just about to catch our crosswind for that stand. It's like a do or die type sit, you know. If other deer are going to be walking that same trail and they're not shooters, well, there's a pretty good chance they're going to end up downwind. And this guy, we couldn't let him get to our wind.
Right. Yeah.
So it was about 3 steps, and I didn't know what that wind was doing right off the edge of that ridge knob. So it could have been swirling. So I was like, all right, I was locked on, and you know, most of it was probably just heat of the moment. Let her go, and was ready to pound one through him. So,
well, you did that for sure.
Yeah,
he went down quick, man. That was cool.
That was a happy day.
Yeah. So, you know, to me, like this is something that it's one of those things. Like, I shot a doe, 2 weeks ago, and like half of everything that happened I don't remember. Like, you know, you even just a doe, you kind of go into this like autopilot. But
Right.
you know, you would hope that I guess all things working out and in your mind, like being conscious the whole time, you would hope that like you would just kind of adjust your grunt level for the distance that the deer is and the wind and whatever,
Right.
you know, if there's car noise or whatever. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the way I think about it, at least.
Yeah, I would agree. That was, you know, it was a pretty quiet woods, and I'll just blame it on the video editors. Maybe they cranked up.
I wasn't trying to tell you that you did it wrong. I was just saying that's how, like, in my mind, I think about it, you know. And I was like, I had to grunt twice on that doe to get her to stop, because a lot of times when you've been sitting there like real quiet for a few hours, your voice doesn't work very good. And so you have this like real weird thing that comes out of your mouth. Yeah. So you got to like clear your throat and then do the second one. But anyway, yeah. So when you're in that area, you were talking about a little ridge knob, and that also is a creek bottom area as well. So it sounds like there's, I guess, a lot of elevation right in there. How are you guys managing that elevation, and how are you setting up to be successful when there's, you know, creek bottoms and then ridges as well?
Yeah, so I think that's for this particular piece. It was like, man, there's not really a great wind because it was a little swirly with the you know, the head of the ridge coming down right there. And a west wind was still, that's what we ended up hunting on. And it was blowing, as you saw in the video, it would have been blowing directly parallel to, or perpendicular to where that deer was going. And it was actually blowing down another draw where certainly deer could have come from, but we were hunting them based on them moving along the creek bottom there. So we went on a crosswind day, and, because that was about the only consistent wind we could get, because everything to the east or to the west of there, where the wind would have been coming from, was flat ag for hundreds of yards. So we knew we were getting a consistent wind to blow down that draw, and that most anything that would walk by, we'd at least get a shot at because of where that ridge necked everything down. and it worked out well there. One other thing we did, we were hunting on that public, but we got permission from the private people to walk through their alfalfa field.
Oh, cool.
To jump into that creek and then access it that way. Now, I guess we go back every year and shed hunt, and I guess that person has since sold their property or whatever, so I'm not sure if we'll have access that way anymore, but we could still come in off the top parking area. It's just a longer walk and through a little more timber, so you have the chance of bumping some more stuff, but you'd still be hunting the same basic movement of them running along the creek, scent checking those bottoms. And so anxious to get back, because the year after that, the guy that was filming me that night, the other intern, Lee, he actually lives in Iowa, so he went back there that same night a year later, sat the exact same tree, ended up getting down from that tree, and just as his feet touched the ground, this was after a morning hunt, he caught a buck moving and ended up shooting a 160 off the ground right there.
Oh, wow.
On public.
Same day, exactly a year from there. And I don't know, I keep bugging the Midwest Whitetail guys. I don't know why they're not sitting that every year, but nobody's sat it, I guess, since he shot that one. So,
well, could be good for you if you draw a tag next year.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing at least a sit or two in there.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So you talked about getting that access on the private there. I guess you didn't have hunting access there, or did you guys just not ask for that?
Yeah, we did, but they basically had a couple tree lines. We really weren't that interested in hunting their property at all. It's just getting to the spot of the public that not many people would actually get to. Or
is that one of those? How did you go about? Did you knock on the door? Did y'all have a network there where you knew somebody, or?
No, it was a good old door knock. We were a couple out of the area interns, and just happened to work out. It was this nice 90-year-old lady. So
perfect.
It wasn't another hunter, so that was good.
Yeah. Take your head off, wipe your feet at the door, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so we sit here and dream and have aspirations of doing that one day, just have the perfect door knock that works out for you, but it is yet to happen in our area or elsewhere, for me at least.
I can't imagine in Texas.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Everybody likes to say their place is tough, so I'm not going to over-exaggerate it or anything, but we have a lot of small tracks and a lot of people hunt down here, so, and it's there's no bitter feelings towards it. I mean, I understand that. If you want to hunt your place, you don't need to let me on it. It makes sense to me. Yeah. But so I'm going to go a little bit more conceptual here. We're coming up on the rut here, okay? And can you tell me if there is, or break down the differences of how you would approach hunting a private tract versus a public tract in the rut, assuming that they have the same amount of hunter pressure?
Okay, yeah. So assuming they've got the exact same hunting pressure, yeah, for sure. So I base a lot of stuff off hunting pressure.
Yeah.
There's parcels where I'll get on there. In fact, I'll go back to Iowa. We had permission on a couple. They're probably both 300-acre farms, two of them. Mm-hmm. And we're like, all right, we're scored. We don't even have to hunt public here in Iowa. We've got the honey hole. We hit on two of your granddaddy door knocks, like you said. Man. And we're like, all right, this is awesome. And, set trail cameras up. Even the one planted a food plot for us in August. It was like, holy man. Hold on. Awesome.
The landowner planted a food plot for you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It was like, I don't know. I had a buddy from Mississippi, so I don't know if his southern draw and politeness got to him.
Hey, that bodes well for us. We need to go to Iowa and door knocking.
Yeah, I was like, we were out there with this rototiller, a hand rototiller, and trying to rototill It was like must have been an overgrown part of a pasture or whatever. It was all sod, so this rototiller was just doing nothing. And we're like, wow, we're gonna be out here forever. You think we just go ask that landowner and see if he's got his tractor hooked up to that disc over there? You think he would just come do a quick pass if we're shooting deer off his property? And I'll be darned, he said, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
That's awesome.
And, he got it all worked up for us. We planted it, and I don't think we ever ended up hunting it, because what I was getting to was these couple of pieces of private. Well, being as nice as he was, he let everybody and his brother hunt his property.
Yeah.
So it didn't take long for us to do a couple hunts in early October and run into 3 other hunters, and each one's hunting, a different chunk of the timber or whatever. And it was just like, yeah, not for us. And so then we reverted back to hunting public land, where honestly, there wasn't a ton of pressure. You get a couple guys in there in the parking lots, obviously during that rut time. But you just gotta, judging by where they're parked, and a lot of these public tracks in Iowa will actually have ag fields, and a lot of guys seem to hunt pretty close to these little ag fields or whatever that the farmers have to leave standing for conservation purposes. So if you get in, that was one thing. You just get in get away from the egg. You'll pretty much get away from hunter pressure. Every now and then you'll run into a guy, and then once gun season starts, it's a totally different story. Then the woods are covered in people, and you just got to expect that you're going to run into a bunch of public hunters and hope they bump the right one to you.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, luckily down here, it's kind of a catch-22. We have a 2-month-long rifle season in Texas, which you probably already know that. But what's good for us is on most of the public tracks, it's archery only. So at least
that's awesome.
Yeah, for safety factor and the fact that you don't lose half your deer population every year, it's kind of nice, with that. But there's not a ton of public at all. So, you deal with a lot of that. And I'm not saying it's bad or good, but it's just the way it is. There's a long rifle season down here. So I can't imagine going, to Iowa when you got people everywhere on public land and, slugs flying and, this and that.
It was like, it's a crazy army. There'd be 15 passenger vans of Amish folk getting out and just lining up to do deer drive. Everybody does deer drives. It's just like push. So, but it's, we run into the same thing here in Southeast Wisconsin. We've got pretty minimal public land around here. The northern half of the state, that's like, over 50% of that's public land. And then some other areas, but we're kind of, where I'm at right here is about 45 minutes north of Milwaukee. So we get a lot of the suburban type areas, kind of, I would say probably similar to what you've been describing, a lot of small tracks, stuff like that. A lot of people hunting, just people not, general consensus is we might not have as many people that hunt as you guys, but we've got a lot more probably anti-hunters around here that just don't want people on their land.
Okay.
Whether they're, messing around or they've had a bad experience in the past, which always makes it tough. So I don't know. I'll always ask people, but you never know what you're going to get. There's been times where I called up a shed hunting because I seen this field with 100 deer in it every night on the way home from work, and she just went ballistic on me on the phone, and I was just asking for permission. I was like, holy man. She was swearing up a storm. Did you ever touch foot on that property? I was like, okay, that's what I'm calling to ask for permission, lady.
That's funny. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I see 100 deer in the field all the time, too. It's no big deal. That's a joke. That's not true.
No, that's why I really wanted to get in this field, because we don't see it hardly at all. But there's just, I don't know what it was, but the farmer didn't get in there. It was like at least 70 acres of uncut corn and beans, and they're just attracted every deer in the neighborhood.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's pretty crazy.
So I don't have a great grasp of Wisconsin, but from what I understand, it's almost like a tale of two states, where there's part of the state that's really tough with like that smaller northern style deer, and then there's part of the state that's like the Midwest style. Is that kind of how it sets up there?
For sure. It's it's all big woods hunting up north, not much ag just large timber tracts, beaver pond swamps. That's where I've done a fair amount of hunting up there. Just it's kind of where we grew up as our family and with deer camp. So we do a lot. Usually I go up there every year for gun season. And then, down around here, the whole southern part of the state, southern half of the state, I would say is your typical Midwest kind of ag pockets of timber. And then you get a little bit of a sub region on the southwest part of the state where it's all just massive hills and stuff along the Mississippi.
That's cool. Yeah. I'd love to go see that country.
Yeah. That's where you get your famed Buffalo County. All the infamous Boone and Crockett states are pretty much along that Mississippi corridor, and even Minnesota is really good. It's about the same stuff. And, I mean, I think that kind of terrain mimics all the way down the Mississippi into Illinois and Iowa, the whole eastern edges and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you said that you base a lot of your hunting on hunting pressure. And, we were talking about calling and rattling and things like that earlier. How much of that do you take in consideration when you're talking hunting pressure? And does it have any effect? Just because, we hunt in an area that has quite a bit of hunting pressure, and I've seen mixed results. Some days it works great, and some days, it just, you blow a grunt call and the deer take off. It's just.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you see?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I think it relates to turkey hunting also. I'll be kind of the same scenario. 5 guys have already hunted. Wisconsin's got this weird system with different seasons of turkey hunting. So each season is a 1 week long for 6 weeks in a row. So if you got like the 6th period, and this farmer let a guy in, and you're going to be trying to call to these birds through open fields, it's probably not going to lay out very well for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's, similar to deer hunting. If there's deer getting blown calls at, it can be do or die. But then again, it's like, well, what do you do? If there's a buck cruising by at 100 yards or whatever, and he's not going to like the grunt tube, it's a tough scenario to be like, all right, well, I'm just going to let him go by and hope he circles back for some reason.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I don't know. Maybe you switch it up. Maybe do something, that the other guy's not. Mm-hmm. If it's a snort wheeze or something like that. And I think the biggest thing with calling is a lot of people tend to overcall, and that goes back onto I almost always need to see the deer that I'm calling at to see what he's doing. If you can stop him on that first grunt or second grunt, whatever, first one that he hears, and he turns and looks at you, there's a pretty good chance he's going to at least take a couple steps towards you or come the whole way. And then if he's, first one, he might be a little curious and just kind of turn his head. And then as soon as you see him turn his head away, hit him again. If he turns again and you get some sort of movement out of him, whether it's, turning the body towards you or whatever, stop. He's probably going to come in. And then from there on, it's always, I always like to play the visual game where if they can see where the call is coming from, I don't call. Mm-hmm. If they've got their head turned or there's a big, brushy pocket of honeysuckle or something like that in their way, maybe you give them one more just to entice them. But once they're coming, there's not much that's going to turn them around. They've already committed to being curious and that sort of thing. So,
So how much do you take deer densities into play on that as well?
In terms of calling tactics, or
so
if there's other deer around when you're
as far as a deer that, say for instance, there's a high deer density in this area, you might a deer might be more apt to consider rattling something that is more interesting to him, versus a deer who, there's one deer every 400 acres or something like that. Then rattling, there probably isn't a lot of buck on buck action like that going on. Is that something you consider very often?
Yeah, I would say that. I guess I would lean more towards not so much the density of it, but the age, or not the age structure, but the sex ratio.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a ton of does to bucks ratio, you know, whatever. If it's 3 does to 1 buck or higher, something like that, it gets, calling becomes significantly tougher because there's just less competition for does. I mean, they don't have to walk very far if they're, and this kind of plays into deer density too. If there's a big deer density, but relatively small amount of mature bucks, you'll have these issues also because there's a lot of does. These bucks don't have to go very far to find a mature receptive doe. And also, there's not a lot of competition for that doe. So they're going to be less apt to coming into a call or rattle sequence, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to pressured land, be it private or public, have you seen a commonality between like an area or a habitat or a feature that seems to always hold bucks on that pressured land?
Let me see here. I would say, here, let's look at it this way. If there's always some pretty big commonalities that always hold hunters.
Okay.
Or that attract hunters, I should say.
Uh-huh.
And so if you can locate those, yes, it might look, there's a reason it attracts hunters, probably because it looks like a good spot on the ground, and maybe it proofs out like that on the first couple scouting missions. Maybe there is a bunch of deer sign, but as soon as a bunch of hunters go there, maybe it's, you know, not that hard of a walk, or like you said, there's some infatuation with being able to see a fair amount of distance on a couple of those first sits, or you know, it just, a lot of times it's those or those areas that, like on public land specifically, like you hit it and you're like, man, if this was private land, this would be a perfect spot for a food plot. Or there's, you know, it's like a little pocket where there's no trees or something like that, where you're like, oh, perfect. I set up a stand. I've got my shooting lanes already set. Good chance. I feel like that's where hunters are at. Right. And I think it's becoming more and more difficult too to find these hidden gems because aerial mapping is so good. So, you know, I know, like up north last year in the northern part of the state, I was like mapping out a bunch of these potential pinch points where I'm like, all right, it's pretty good distance off the road. It would be like 2 beaver ponds or something with pretty big swamp edges or creeks coming off of them that funneled deer through this ridge that was right in between the 2 beaver ponds. I'm like, oh, golden, you know, you don't find this much up north in this big woods country, these kind of pinch points. And so I'm like, all right, we'll go in there. Well, there's 3 4-wheelers parked at the trailhead, and we're all going back to that same pinch point. So right. I don't know. So it's becoming harder and harder with aerial, but
like you said, there's you find, if you can find it on an aerial, if it looks like a funnel or a pinch on an aerial, then maybe there's that hunter commonality there. So then that gives you reason to do more boot scouting or something like that, you know?
Yeah, right. That's exactly what it is. It still might be a great spot. Maybe there just wasn't a hunter looking at that piece of public that year or that day or whatever. It's not to write that spot off before you even go and check it out on your own on the ground. But yeah, a lot of those spots that we found a lot of big deer, especially in Iowa, were just, you know, these little thickets or these little bowls or whatever. They didn't necessarily stand out a whole lot on a map from an overhead perspective, because they were just nested right in the middle of timber. And it wasn't like, all right, we're looking at all these topo lines and hitting the main ridge where 2 other heads come together, which, you know, is a good spot too. But you can see that stuff on maps. So I think, you know, going back to the boot scouting, I think it's becoming more prevalent because those deer adjust to the pressure. Even if that's where they prefer to move, you might catch them there during the rut now again when they're really cruising and they like to, you know, run the ridge tops or cross these saddles. And a lot of stuff gets overlooked depending on hunter density. But yeah, I think boot scouting is becoming more and more prevalent and observation sets.
Yeah. Cool. Well, AJ, this has been a great conversation, man. I've got a couple of questions here that I'd like to pose to you to conclude this thing. The first is, what are some of the best attributes that this younger generation of hunters like us and yourself have to offer to the world of whitetail or just hunting in general?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's just respecting the sport. From our perspective, I don't know what else to describe it as, but I'm not a huge term of the word sport for hunting, just because it makes it, I guess I identify it as a game or whatever, where it's something completely different. It's one that's hard to get across to non-hunters, that it really is, this whole self-experience, this lifestyle. I mean, look at all of our actions, what we do on a daily basis, for the entire year, not just during hunting season. And a lot of that's focused, around the lifestyle of hunting, not the so much the shot of whatever game you're pursuing. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, when I was eating deer stew the other day, I wasn't really participating in sport, like I wasn't shooting, but like you said, it's a lifestyle. It's something we do, 365. I think that's a great point, man.
Yeah. So I think that's one. And I think there needs to be new people coming into the sport continuously. Obviously, hunter numbers have been on the decline. Yeah. And some of the issues we talked about don't make it necessarily better with, there's a lot of parcelization of the U.S. It's very hard to get access. You live in areas like me or you where maybe there's just not much public hunting too, so your success is limited. Well, it's hard to get hunters back in the woods after multiple unsuccessful hunts. They're not seeing anything. So, but I think, part of it's just getting past the intimidation factor, that even I face it sometimes. So I can't imagine what a new hunter, would be facing, especially, pulling into a parking lot or something. I'm not always one to, I'm like, oh shoot, a truck is there. I shouldn't go walking in there, even though it's, 1,000-acre piece or whatever. If a truck's there, whatever, it's public land and everybody has the right to be on it. So just go and hunt it. Same with knocking on a door. It's kind of like, it's one of those things where it takes me a little bit to get up for it. But once I start or whatever, if I make a Saturday afternoon of it where that's all I'm doing is driving around, knocking on doors for permission, then it becomes a lot easier because you're used to that repetition of asking the right questions, introducing yourself and whatnot. So, and then just, reach out. I mean, with social media nowadays, it's so easy to reach out to other hunters, even ones you're seeing on TV and getting good responses, getting help from them. And that'll just build confidence along the way.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So finally here, I'd like to have you deliver some inspiration to the listener. So the guy or the girl that listens to this podcast or any of the others every week and tries to employ the things that they've learned, do things the right way, and work hard at it, but just has had no luck so far through the month of October or even part of September, locating a buck on trail camera or even seeing one with the naked eye, tell them why they should keep their head up.
Oh boy. All right. This is pretty easy for me because I just faced the same thing in Wyoming. Just always remember it takes 1 second or 1 minute to change your entire season. We had hunted for 5 days in Wyoming. So we kind of split off. There's a group of 6 of us. We split off into pairs, whatever. Me and my old college roommate were hunting together that entire week, 5 days. Did not see a single buck. We would see 50 does a day.
Wow.
But we could not see a buck. And we get back to camp, of course, so the buddies are, oh, I shot this, saw this, I missed this, whatever. It's like, can we just see one? And I mean, it literally took 1 second of spotting one, putting a stalk on, and season was completely changed. Spears slipped it high. And I think, that's probably my one word of wisdom. Yeah. And don't rely on trail cameras all the time.
Yeah.
I've been known to get down on not having trail cameras. In fact, that buck I shot 2 years ago, never had a single picture of him.
Really?
Trail cameras don't see everything. I mean, there's been times I've been in spots and I've seen 9 different bucks on one morning. This morning always sticks out to me because I'm like, man, I'm putting way too much weight in my trail cameras. So 9 bucks that morning, all within bow range. None were particularly mature, but none of them crossed in front of that trail camera.
Right.
So if I check that trail camera, this spot's written off. You know. So
yeah, that
those would
kind
be
of
my 2 biggest things.
Yeah, that kind of if you had listened to this whole episode, you can kind of take that advice from several of the situations you've already laid out for us with the deer that showed up 5 minutes before dark. That you were talking about that you killed the 150s class deer, and then the deer on public land. 1 minute there's nothing going on, and the next thing he's cruising directly to you and gives you a broadside shot. You never know.
No trail cameras there either. Actually, we did, but we checked it after I shot that deer, and we had him on camera at 5 o'clock that morning, but obviously didn't know it going into that hunt.
Right, right. Well, cool, man. This has been awesome. I appreciate the time so much.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Nice to meet you and Casey.
Right. Yeah, man, it's back at you. It goes both ways, and we'll be sure to link to a lot of your videos and the rut vehicle or trailer in Legendary Whitetails and stuff, and that way people can find what you're up to. Quick maybe website or whatever is the best way to get in touch with you if somebody was wanting to do that.
Yeah, so either you can hit us up. We're pretty active on Facebook at Legendary Whitetails, and we pretty much put all our content out on our Facebook. Also, run the social media account or the Instagram account. So we're at our username is @DeerGear, and then those are probably our 2 best ways. And then the community site off the Legendary Whitetails website is what I do. It's all the hunting content stuff. So, and go pick yourself up a nice flannel.
Yeah, go do it. We'll make sure and link to all that in the notes here underneath the podcast. And man, I hope your fall goes good. If you shoot a big toad, send us a picture.
All right, for sure. You too, guys.
All right, man.
And maybe we can. We'll stay in touch. Maybe we can make this Iowa thing happen.
I'm all game for it. Let me know. We'll be in touch, man.
All right, sounds good.
See ya. Man, I need to go make some more scrapes.
I'm pumped. Dude, I cannot believe that in 1 week we are going to be in Kansas.
K-City.
I've never been there, and this interview with AJ has got me jacked about the Midwest. Can we still call where y'all go the Midwest? Is it still cool?
Yeah, I mean,
as long as it's not the mountains?
It's in the middle of the West,
yeah.
I think.
I don't really understand how that works.
I don't either because some people call certain states Midwest, some people call them Upper Midwest, some call them Lower Midwest.
Well, is Eastern Montana still the Midwest, even because it's not in the mountains?
I don't know. You never know, man.
Yeah.
I just know that Texas is not really the Midwest.
No, it's not.
So, and it's a little bit tougher hunting than some of the Midwest.
It is, man. But you know what? When you have talks like this and talk to guys like this, it kind of reinvigorates me for the fact that you can still get out here and get it done. And there's deer here just like there are everywhere else. It's just a different type of hunting.
That's it, man. You just gotta do it differently, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think for me. I want to go out this afternoon so bad, but just got the volleyball game.
Me too.
And you got what, trunk or treat or something?
Trunk or treat at the church. Me and my wife are in charge of trunk or treat. That's okay.
Yeah.
There'll be more cold fronts. There'll be better days.
Well, I hadn't looked at the weather past today really because I was so infatuated with this one. But does it stay with us tomorrow?
Well, it warms up a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, it's not horrible. You might think about going. I don't know about the wind direction, but I do know that. Monday in Kansas is going to be slightly warm, and then Tuesday is a pretty good cold front for next week. So
flip that
I'm
north wind.
jacked about it. I mean, it's not like a snowstorm kind of cold front, but we're talking like
it's early November.
high 50 and low of 30.
28,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, something like that.
That's
So-
that's a hunting day to me. Dude.
Oh,
That's as
yeah.
good as it gets.
I mean, and the funny thing is, like, we talk about cold fronts and stuff like that, but and Mark Drury talks about the first south after a couple norths or whatever, you know, and that being good. But like in Kansas, when it's November or December and it's 50 to like 55 during the middle of the day and cools off a bunch at night, you know, and it's just that late season or even rut. Man, it's just like good weather, no cloud cover, and for some reason I have seen so many deer in the afternoons on that kind of weather. And I don't know, I hadn't really, because it's been in the past before I really learned a lot, but I haven't really coordinated or correlated it with like first south after two norths. But like, man, I mean, they like good weather too. But
bet
it's crispy. It's
Yeah.
cold. It's crisper. But
Well, it makes sense. Like, I'm sure those are probably high pressure days for one, and for two, if you have on, some camouflage clothing and some base layers, and you still feel good outside, that's what a deer's going to feel like,
Right.
And there's days when you and I go out there when we got every piece of clothing we got on, and we're still freezing to death. I'm sure the deer are freezing to death, which they still moving that, but
Right.
if it's cool enough for you to feel good in your layering system, then it's probably good for the deer.
yeah, they're going to be moving around,
Yeah.
being happy, eating and stuff. And I mean, we've had some, I'm telling you, like if you give me a sunny evening hunt up there in Kansas where it's 52 degrees when I go in, and, by the time dark hits, it's probably 30, 3 or something like that, right there above freezing, man, that's going to be a good afternoon. So I'm excited, man. I guess lastly, the thing I would say is, if you haven't seen the films yet, make sure you go check those out. We have released recently that the film of the doe that I shot, which was really cool. And I've had several people talk about how neat it was to, see that after the shot happenings and everything that went on. So that's been encouraging. And then the Jack film release finally. We've talked about it for like 14 years on this podcast. So I'm glad that finally has released. But further, we have the 2015 season film that's going to release pretty soon here. And it's a long film, so it's going to depend on my internet service highly. But I'm hoping that by the time this podcast releases, which will be on a Thursday, hopefully Thursday or Friday, we'll have that film at the latest.
And that film includes Jack, and that's why it hasn't
Yes.
been released so far, right?
Right.
Because of the full draw film tour stuff.
Yeah, you can't release it while it's on the film tour because they want to have the rights to it, and so that people have a reason to come to the tour.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to release that season film as well. So, but it's got actually 3, if you include Jack, 3 different deer being shot on the film. So you'll just have to see how that turns out. And it's I enjoy taking all the footage from the whole year and just putting it together in a kind of a long format and just remembering how things were in a longer format. And some people, you may or may not be that person that can sit there and watch that, or you may want to, but for me, it's like something that is like I get to remember all the funny laughs and stuff that happened, and I even cut out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put it all on a timeline; it'd be hours and hours long. But hopefully, you'll enjoy the good times and the struggles and the time lapses and everything else that we did that season. So,
Believe me, I'm that guy. I'm the guy who. So I don't know if they still do it, but Lee and Tiffany Lakowski used to do like a live feed of deer under a feeder, and I would sit and watch it for like an hour. And we're talking about just deer under a feeder in the snow. I mean, so anything hunting related, especially good cinematography value like what you put out or we put out. I love it. I eat it up.
Yeah.
And so for you, the listener, a lot of that stuff can be found on our Facebook. So be sure you go like our Facebook, the Element Podcast. We release some of our shorter films, at least, on the Facebook account there. You can see the doe film, you can see Jack, and you'll be able to get your fill of all that there.
Yeah.
And then if you transition over to our Instagram account, which is at the Element Podcast, you'll see kind of more of our day-to-day happenings along with some of our really good pictures and stuff. And be following along on that on the story because our trip to Kansas is going to be I'm hoping the cell phone dependent, cell phone service dependent, pretty well documented on that. But of course, we're gonna leave you with a few cliffhangers just in case you.
We're not giving you all the map dots.
Exactly.
So, and then YouTube, contains all of our, whether it's long or short format films. And so there's a lot of good stuff there. And our subscription list has gone up quite a bit in the last few months.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, so thanks if you're a subscriber there on YouTube. And so anyway, is there anything else? We got maybe a couple plugs?
Yeah, well, okay, so first of all, go check out Legendary Whitetails with AJ Gall.
Yeah.
AJ's cool, dude. I enjoy talking to him.
Me too.
He's a pretty sharp mind and kind of young and relatable for guys like us. For two, Christmas is coming, and there's no better gift to give than the gift of conservation. Okay? I know we don't like to hear this stuff too often, but for real, there are a lot of good subscriptions that you can give out for $25 whenever you get a quarterly magazine. Somebody who's interested in hunting or public lands or travel or whatever. The TRCP, Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, QDMA. Like, that's a great membership for people who are whitetail specific like us. You're rocking your lid today, the QDMA.
Yep.
So what up? But so whatever it is, if you got somebody you don't know what to buy for them, they like to hunt or fish, get them a membership to one of these conservation orgs that you think they might care about.
For sure. Yep. And there's plenty of other good ones out there that you can search and find and vet if you're worried about them, whether they're doing the right things or not. Feel free to reach out and ask us too. What else? If there's any others we like, send us a Facebook message or email or whatever. And I guess that is going to wrap up this episode. Final thoughts for me would include just well wishes for all of you out there hunting the rut, because it is the best time of year. I mean, we're talking about the next few days. By the next time we talk to you guys, I mean, it's gonna be heart of the rut. I mean, it's gonna be right in there. So I'm sitting here with a smile on my face, same as KC. Just can't hardly contain ourselves. So we'll keep you involved in our day-to-day as much as possible. You guys feel free to send us pics of things that are going on in your life as well. We like seeing that stuff. So anyway, happy hunting. The rut is upon us. God bless you guys. This is your element.
Living it.